Brian in Memphis. I know there's been a long debate about whether to get an iPhone or an Android phone, and of course, you know, whether you should get which carrier you should go with, Verizon or AT&T, or even T-Mobile for that matter. They're pretty cheap, or Sprint. And what I've come to find out is there is no one brand solution, but there is a dual solution that provides, if you ask me, a better combination, and for some folks I think it ushers in a new mode of cellular computing. And what I finally did was I got an opportunity because of Best Buy, and their specials, their one-day specials. I picked up an AT&T Nexus S for $0. Can't beat $0. So now I have a Verizon iPhone and an AT&T Nexus S, which, if you ask me, is the best combination right now that you can get of any of the different phones, because clearly Verizon has the better coverage, but there are still some places in the U.S., and especially if you're out west, there's certain parts of the country that are AT&T has better access, and even in places that I've found, even places here in Memphis, which Verizon is definitely a better carrier here in Memphis than AT&T, but you'll find little nooks in buildings where AT&T has better coverage, and it's really comforting and convenient, both from an internet usage-wise and from a phone usage-wise, to be able to use both. Because what that allows you to do is, if I'm not in an area where the Verizon phone will allow me to make a proper phone call, I can pull out the Nexus S and I can make an AT&T phone call, and of course it works, which is really nice, and vice versa. There's areas where AT&T is definitely weak and Verizon is better. And of course, even when you have good coverage, that doesn't mean that your internet bandwidth is there either. I've had AT&T where it had great coverage, and it was like the backhaul at the cellular site was saturated, so I could switch between the phones to get the best internet usage. And then I found myself with two phones, which is interesting. At first, I did it as, I had both phones as an experiment to see which one I liked better, and I was going to switch between them and forward the calls between them, depending on where I was going and what I was going to be doing. And what I found was, and especially nowadays with Google Voice, where I can have both the iPhone and the Nexus, be able to call out with my Google Voice number, so I can obscure the cell phone number. It really gives you the ability to switch between cell phones a lot easier than you used to be able to. And what I found is that both phones are useful. And just like in the computing world, where a few years back everybody started using dual monitors, I found that two is better than one. You got two hands, and with the keyboard, on-screen keyboard interfaces that they have nowadays, it's very easy, especially with the form factor of both the iPhone and the Nexus S. You can easily work both of them with one hand. And I think the Nexus S is a great example of the maximum size that you can still do that. I mean, anything bigger, when I've looked at and played around with any of the bigger Android phones, you can't handle them with one hand anymore. They become two-hand phones. It's great if you have vision issues. The bigger screens are really nice, as you get older and you can't see as well. But I find that the Nexus S is probably the perfect size. It's big enough that everything's a good size, and it's not too big that you can't still use it one-handed. And what I found was with two phones, I could be looking at, an example would be I could be looking at an email, and instead of having to flip between apps, I could, bring up a map on my Nexus phone while I look at the email on my iPhone, or vice versa, or where there's preferred apps on the different platforms. Some of the news apps I like better on the Nexus, and some of the other apps I like better on the iPhone. Another example is the navigation. The built-in Android navigation is by far way ahead of what you can get on the iPhone. But when I'm traveling, I find because I've got a mount for my Nexus where it's in the vent, one of the vent mounts, and I use it for navigation like a GPS. Then I have my iPhone down at the console down by the shifter with a docking, a dock, I guess you call it, where I found myself, a lot of times you'll be in navigation mode and you really need to see a map because you need to cut around something or you need to look for a restaurant. You don't want to jump out of that navigation, and especially the way the Android works, when you're in navigation mode, it doesn't give you easy access to the map. You have to break out of the navigation mode. And having the two phones, I can flip over to the map, the Google Maps on the iPhone, and it brings a lot of utility. It really surprised me because I didn't think that it would be that much of a difference. But just like the dual monitors, you find yourself throwing different things up on the different monitors, and the phone's the same way. When I'm at home or in the office, I can pull up both phones with different information, and it becomes real useful, and makes you more productive. And so in the end, I think the perfect phone is an AT&T Nexus with a Verizon iPhone, and you have the perfect combination. Get you a little glue or some Velcro, stick them together, and do everything that you need to do phone-wise. So that's all I have today, and all I have to say is don't get lost. Bye.